We will now reconvene our informal hearing on House Bill 33. I'll give you a moment to take your seats. Next, we will welcome the following individuals from Licking Heights Local Schools. Mr. Brian Bagley, Board President, Mr. Kevin Miller, Superintendent, and Mr. Todd Griffith, CFO. Welcome.
Well, good afternoon, Chair Richardson, Ranking Member Isaacson, and members of the House Finance Subcommittee on Primary and Secondary Education. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present testimony today on House Bill 33. My name is Brian Bagley, and I serve as the President of Licking Heights Local Schools Board of Education. It has been my pleasure to serve on our district's Board of Education for the last 12 years. Joining me today as I present this testimony are District Superintendent Dr. Kevin Miller and our District CFO, Mr. Todd Griffith. We are here today to ask the Ohio Legislature to approve the school funding formula included in House Bill 33. Situated in both Franklin and Licking counties, Licking Heights is the second fastest growing school district in Central Ohio and one of the fastest growing in the state. At over 5,100 students, we have nearly tripled our enrollment since 2003. In the past 5 years alone, our enrollment has increased by over 1,000 students. As our district is growing quickly, it is becoming more diverse in many ways. Almost 20% of our students are English language learners, with 47 home languages spoken in our school district. Over 47% of our students are economically disadvantaged, and 13% of our students are students with disabilities. Due to the state funding gain cap, Licking Heights has lost approximately $95 million in state funding over the last 10 years. The initial phase-in of the Fair School Funding Plan has been a positive step for the district. However, Licking Heights still realized $11 million in lost state funding this past fiscal year. Obviously, this loss in state funding negatively impacts programming for our students and our long-term financial strategy. Frankly, we do not have the ability to address such rapid growth without full implementation of the Fair School Funding Plan. Without full implementation of the plan, we will continue to limit our programming while struggling with high student-to-teacher ratios. Our current ratios are 26th highest out of Ohio's 600-plus school districts. Licking Heights ranks 4th lowest in the state with per-pupil expenditures. The initial phase-in of the Fair School Funding Plan has had a positive impact on our district. Mrs. Mickelson is one of our 14 English language learner teachers in the district. Previously, she was serving 85 students each day who are not only learning math, science, social studies, and reading, they are also learning how to speak English. This ratio was typical of all EL teachers in our district. The initial phase-in of the Fair School Funding Plan has provided funding to hire more EL teachers. Now Mrs. Mickelson serves 68 students each day. It's progress, but it's still too many students for one teacher to serve. Further phase-in of the plan will allow us to continue reducing those ratios so that our EL students have the very best chance for success. Mrs. Stern is our kindergarten teacher who has served our district for 14 years. Previous to the initial phase-in of the Fair School Funding Plan, she had 29 5-year-olds in her kindergarten class. Mrs. Majerus had 31 students in her kindergarten class. These were typical kindergarten classroom sizes. We have used the funding from the initial phase-in of the plan to focus on reducing class sizes in the primary grades and meet the individual needs of a diverse student population. Although still high, our kindergarten ratios are now closer to one teacher for every 25 students. The Fair School Funding Plan is making a difference for Licking Heights students, and we are thankful for legislators in support that were in support of it in the fiscal year 22-23 budget. We support the continued phase-in of the Fair School Funding Plan formula for the next biennial budget. Furthermore, the district is supportive of the school resource officer funding. In closing, we would also propose an amendment to use data from FY22 to calculate the district's aggregate base costs. Currently, HB 33 does not amend the provision of the school funding plan that uses data from FY18 to calculate the district's aggregate base costs. for such things such as average teacher salaries and teacher retirement benefits. Using FY22 data would help offset some of the increased expenses resulting from inflationary factors in our economy. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify today in support of House Bill 33 and the Fair School Funding Plan. We certainly welcome your questions and feedback.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Are there questions of the witness and our witnesses? Ranking Member Isaacson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much for coming and for the work you're doing, and for a very clear and powerful testimony. My question is around the ratios you described, because we've heard really powerful testimony in this committee from some specialized schools and some smaller private schools about what it means for their students to be able to get individualized attention from their teachers. And so, you know, when you talk about 25 or 29-to-1 ratios, particularly for younger students, my question is, where would the fully implemented phase-in of the funding formula plus going up to 2022 base costs get you in terms of ratios, both in terms of kindergarten or otherwise?
Well, Chair Richardson and Ranking Member Isaacson, I am going to let Dr. Miller step in and answer that question.
Our goal with our primary grade classes, so K through 2 and K through 3 probably, would be that ratios would be closer to 20-to-1. One teacher for every 20 students, and then beyond that, 25-to-1. We think those are reasonable, and we think that full implementation would help us to get there.
Follow up?
Quickly. I just want to thank you for that. I just want to clarify. Do you think, based on the numbers, would full implementation get you there? Would full implementation plus the base costs going to year 22 get you there? What would it take to get you to those ratios that you're looking for?
That FY22 piece plus full implementation. Yes.
Are there any other questions of the witnesses? I'm curious to know, you mentioned the school resource officer funding, and I'm wondering, would you have any objections to retired law enforcement filling those positions?
Chair Richardson, not at all.
Thank you. And also this morning, we heard from the director of Ohio's Commission on Hispanic and Latino Affairs. And interestingly, she was talking about collaborating within the community. And with the compelling concern you've expressed with English as a second language and instructors, have you considered or have you had any interaction with the commission or representatives thereof?
Chair Richardson, we have not had interaction with that specific commission to this point.
It may be something you might want to do.
Absolutely.
If there are no other questions, I thank you so much for coming in. Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for all you do for our students, our children. Thank you.
Thank you.